The stellar Voyager's warning systems blared to life, jerking Captain Sarah Chen from her data review. Red emergency lights pulsed through the research vessel's bridge as Lieutenant Park's fingers flew across the sensor array. "Captain, picking up a distress beacon. It's coming from mining colony Delta 7, Park reported, his voice tight. But something's off. The colony was abandoned 3 years ago during the Crimson Corporation bankruptcy. Sarah leaned forward, her dark eyes narrowing at the holographic display. Delta 7 hung like a wounded creature in the void, its massive mining structures jutting from the asteroid's cratered surface. The distress signal pulsed weakly, a fading heartbeat in the darkness of space. "Life signs?" she asked, already knowing normal protocol would say to ignore it. Abandoned colonies were notorious death traps for would-be rescuers. Pirates, scavengers, or worse, often used old distress beacons to lure in unsuspecting ships. "Yes, Mom. But," Park hesitated, recalibrating his instruments. "They're not human. Reading at least 6 distinct biosignatures. Species unknown." Sarah felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. The stellar Voyager was a research vessel, not a warship. Her crew of 15 was composed of scientists and explorers. But she hadn't spent 15 years in deep space to ignore those in need. "Bring us in closer, but maintain distance for emergency jump if needed. Dr. Rivera, prep the medical bay for possible xenobiological patients. Lieutenant Park, continue a scan for any other vessels in the area." As they approached Delta 7, the true state of the colony became clear. Most of the outer structures were intact, but the main habitat dome showed signs of internal damage. The emergency airlocks were sealed, suggesting whatever happened had been contained. "Captain," Park's voice cracked slightly, "I'm getting more detailed readings on those life signs. They're juveniles, children, or their species equivalent." Sarah felt her chest tighten. "Get us docked. Now." The boarding team consisted of Sarah, Dr. Rivera, and Security Officer Zhang. Their environmental suits were sealed against potential contamination as they cut through the emergency airlock. The colony's emergency lights still functioned, casting everything in a dim red glow. They found the first survivor in what had once been the colony's hydroponics section. A small figure huddled behind overturned growing tanks, emitting a soft bioluminescent glow. As Sarah approached, she saw it was a young alien, no larger than a human child. Its skin was covered in delicate scales that shifted color like oil on water, and 4 eyes blinked at them in terror. "It's okay," Sarah said softly, knowing her suit's translator might not help but hoping her tone would. "We're here to help." The alien child made a series of clicking sounds, and suddenly 5 more shapes emerged from hiding. Each was different. One had crystalline growths along its arms. Another seemed to phase slightly in and out of visibility. A third floated a few inches off the ground. Dr. Rivera's medical scanner whirred. "Captain, they're all showing signs of genetic modification. Artificial enhancements, but crude ones. Like someone was experimenting." The floating child approached Sarah, its movements hesitant but deliberate. It reached out with a 6-fingered hand and touched her suit's faceplate. Immediately, a voice echoed in Sarah's mind, weak but clear. "The others left us. Said we were mistakes. Abominations. Please, don't leave us too." Sarah reached up and placed her gloved hand against the child's. "We won't leave you, I promise." Over the next few hours, they learned more. The children were the results of illegal genetic experimentation by a rogue scientific faction. When authorities had closed in, the scientists had abandoned their failed subjects here, leaving them to die. But these children had survived, learning to use their modifications to stay alive in the harsh environment. "Captain," Zhang reported, reviewing the colony's logs. "There's something else. Someone's been searching for them. Multiple ships have passed through this sector in the last month." Sarah watched as Dr. Rivera treated the children's various ailments. The crystalline one had a growth that needed removing. The phase shifter was having trouble maintaining solid form. Each had unique medical needs that their creators had never bothered to address. "How long until they're stable enough to move?" she asked Rivera. "A few hours. But, Captain, these children need specialized care. Their genetic modifications are extremely unstable. Without proper treatment, then we'll find them treatment," Sarah said firmly. "We're not abandoning them like everyone else did." The floating child, who they learned was called Area, approached again. "The bad ones will come back. They always do. They want to destroy us, hide their mistakes." Sarah knelt down to meet all four of Area's eyes. "Let them come. Humanity has a long history of protecting those who need it, and we're very, very good at it." As if in response to her words, the colony's proximity sensors began to wail. A ship had just dropped out of hyperspace nearby. From its signature, it wasn't coming to help. Sarah stood, her jaw set with determination. These children had been abandoned by their own kind, treated as experiments rather than living beings. But they had found humanity now, and humanity had a very different way of doing things. "Get them to the ship," she ordered. "We're going to show them exactly how humans handle bullies." The children looked at her with a mix of fear and hope, emotions that transcended species. They had survived alone for so long, but now they had something they never had before, someone willing to fight for them. And Sarah Chen was ready to show the galaxy exactly why you didn't want to face off against a human protecting those in their care. The stellar Voyager's engines roared to life, burning hard against the asteroid's weak gravity. Sarah watched through the bridge viewport as Delta 7 shrank behind them, her mind already racing through tactical options. The pursuing vessel was twice their size, its hull bristling with weapons. "They're hailing us," Park announced, his fingers hovering over the communications array. "Open channel," Sarah ordered, keeping her voice steady for the children huddled on the bridge. A harsh voice filled the command center, speaking in accented Galactic standard. "Research vessel, you have acquired property belonging to the Zenith Genetics Corporation. Return the specimens immediately, or we will be forced to take hostile action." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "This is Captain Chen of the Earth science vessel Stellar Voyager. We have rescued abandoned children, not specimens. These young ones are now under human protection. Those creatures are failed experiments, Captain. They are dangerous and unstable. Their very existence violates multiple genetic engineering protocols." Area, the telepathic child, trembled beside Sarah's chair. "They want to terminate us. Delete the evidence." Sarah muted the channel and turned to Dr. Rivera, who was monitoring the children's vital signs. "How are they?" "Deteriorating," Rivera admitted quietly. "The genetic modifications are breaking down faster now. Whatever stabilizing treatments they were receiving at the facility, the withdrawal is hitting hard, especially the little one who faces." The phase-shifting child, who they'd named Echo, was flickering more rapidly now, their form becoming increasingly transparent. The crystalline child, Crystal, had new growths appearing along their spine. Each of the children showed signs of accelerating genetic instability. Sarah unmuted the channel. "If these children are so dangerous, why waste resources hunting them? Why not let them die in that abandoned colony?" The voice hesitated just long enough. Sarah smiled grimly. She caught them in their lie. "Lieutenant Park, full scan of that vessel. Look for medical facilities, genetic research equipment." "They're not here to kill us," Area whispered, their luminescent skin pulsing with anxiety. "They want to continue the experiments." The pursuing ship's captain spoke again, this time with an edge of threat. "This is your final warning. Those specimens represent billions in research investment. Return them, or we will open fire." Sarah's response was to cut the channel entirely. "Park, plot us a course through the Kelvin Nebula. Rivera, what do you need to stabilize their conditions?" "I need time and a proper medical facility. Their genetic structures are unlike anything I've seen. Each modification is unique, but they're all connected somehow. It's like like they were meant to work together. Sarah studied the 6 children. Despite their different appearances, she noticed patterns in their modifications. Crystal's growths seemed to resonate at the same frequency as Echo's phasing. Aria's telepathy appeared stronger when near the others. They weren't failed experiments, she realized. They were successful, but not in the way their creators intended. Park, are they still pursuing? Yes, Mom. They're charging weapons. Good. Take us into the nebula, full speed. Time to show them how humans handle a chase. The stellar Voyager plunged into the Kelvin Nebula, its sensors nearly blind in the thick clouds of ionized gas. The pursuing ship followed, its larger size now a disadvantage in the nebula's treacherous currents. Captain, Rivera called out, I'm seeing something remarkable. The nebula's radiation, it's actually helping stabilize their conditions, especially Crystal's growth patterns. Sarah watched as Crystal's spines began to glow, resonating with the nebula's energy. Echo's phasing stabilized, and Aria's telepathic abilities seemed to strengthen. They're not just random modifications, Aria said, their voice stronger. We were meant to adapt, to evolve, but not like they wanted. The pursuing ship fired, its weapons dissipating harmlessly in the nebula's charged atmosphere. Sarah smiled. She'd suspected their weapons wouldn't work here. Human ships had learned to adapt their systems to nebula conditions years ago, but many alien vessels still relied on standard energy weapons. Park, take us deeper. Rivera, keep monitoring their conditions. Children, I need you to trust us. What we're about to do might be scary, but it's going to help you. The stellar Voyager dove deeper into the nebula's heart, where radiation levels were highest. Crystal's growths began to pulse with energy, creating a field that somehow strengthened Echo's phasing ability. Aria's telepathy expanded, linking all 6 children in a way their creators had never imagined. They're powering up something big, Park warned. Some kind of pulse weapon. Now, Sarah ordered. Crystal, Echo, just like we discussed. Show us what you can really do. Crystal's energy field expanded as Echo phased, the combination creating a ripple in spacetime that the nebula's radiation amplified. The pursuing ship's pulse weapon fired, but the energy was caught in the distortion, feeding back into their own systems. The explosion was spectacular, even through the nebula's haze. The pursuing ship didn't break apart. Instead, its systems simply shut down, leaving it dead in space. They're still alive, Aria reported, reading the crew's thoughts even at this distance, but very angry. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Good. Maybe now they'll understand that these children aren't failures. They're the next step in their species' evolution, and humanity will ensure they have the chance to reach their full potential. As the stellar Voyager emerged from the nebula, the children's conditions had stabilized. Their genetic modifications weren't breaking down anymore. Instead, they were adapting, working together in ways their creators had never imagined possible. Where will we go now? Crystal asked, their voice resonating with new confidence. First, we're going to submit a very detailed report about Zenith genetics to the Galactic Council, Sarah said. Then, we're going to find you proper medical care and education. Earth has some experience with helping unique individuals reach their potential. The children gathered around her chair, each glowing or resonating in their own way. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were pioneers of their own evolution, protected by humanity's unwavering dedication to preserving life in all its forms. And anyone who tried to harm them would learn why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most determined defenders of the defenseless. When the first explosion rocked the stellar Voyager, Sarah knew their reprieve had been too good to last. 3 warships had appeared from hyperspace, their designs matching Zenith Genetics' corporate fleet. This time, they weren't taking chances. Multiple targeting locks, Park reported, his voice steady despite the situation. They're trying to disable our engines. In the medical bay, now converted into a makeshift living quarters for the children, Dr. Rivera was documenting an extraordinary discovery. The children's genetic modifications weren't just stabilizing. They were evolving, adapting to work in concert with each other. "Captain," Rivera's voice crackled over the comm. "You need to see this. Crystal's resonance field isn't just protecting them anymore. It's amplifying their abilities." Sarah watched as Crystal's crystalline growths pulsed with energy, creating a shimmering field that enveloped the other children. Echo's phasing ability extended beyond their own body, allowing them to selectively phase parts of the ship. Aria's telepathy had grown strong enough to sense intentions from vast distances. "They're not just coming to capture us," Aria announced, their silver eyes wide. "They're afraid. What we're becoming, it's beyond their control." Another blast rocked the ship. The pursuing vessels were herding them toward a gravity well, trying to force them to drop out of hyperspace. "Captain," Park called out, receiving transmission from Earth Command. "They've received our report about Zenith genetics. The Galactic Council is convening an emergency session." But he hesitated. "There are complications. Zenith has representatives on the council." Sarah's jaw tightened. Of course they did. How long until reinforcements arrive? 6 hours, minimum. A third blast hit them, this one breaching their outer hull. Emergency force field snapped into place, but their situation was deteriorating rapidly. "We need options," Sarah announced, looking at her crew and their young charges. "We can't outrun them forever, and we can't outgun them." Echo, the phase-shifting child, stepped forward. Their form flickered less now, more controlled. "We can hide, not just from sensors, but from reality itself." Dr. Rivera's medical scanner beeped frantically. "Captain, their genetic structures are realigning again. It's like they're building something together." The children gathered in a circle, each one's unique abilities beginning to harmonize with the others. Crystal's resonance field expanded, incorporating Echo's phase-shifting capability. Aria's telepathy linked their minds, allowing perfect coordination. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, watching in amazement as patterns of energy danced between them. "What we were meant to do," Aria answered, their voice echoing with newfound power. "Not weapons, not tools. We're meant to evolve, to show what's possible when different abilities work as one." The pursuing ships fired again, but this time something extraordinary happened. As the energy beams approached, Echo's phasing ability, amplified by Crystal's field, enveloped the entire stellar Voyager. The attacks passed harmlessly through them, as if the ship existed in a different layer of reality. "Impossible," Park whispered, staring at his readings. We're partially out of phase with normal spacetime, but the engines are still functioning." Sarah watched as the children maintained their concentration, their combined abilities creating a sanctuary between dimensions. The pursuing ship's sensors swept past them, unable to detect a vessel that existed partially outside conventional reality. "They did it," Rivera breathed, reviewing the medical data. "Their genetic modifications, they weren't meant to be weapons or tools. They were meant to work together, to achieve something greater than the sum of their parts." But the victory was temporary. The children couldn't maintain this state forever, and their pursuers weren't giving up. "New contact," Park announced. "Large vessel dropping out of hyperspace. It's the flagship of Zenith Genetics. The Evolutionary Prime." The massive vessel that appeared dwarfed their pursuers. Its design was unlike anything they'd seen before, bristling with experimental technology and weapons that probably violated dozens of Galactic Council regulations. "I sense someone," Aria said suddenly, their voice tight with fear. "Someone like us, but wrong. Twisted. They forced the evolution, didn't let it happen naturally." Sarah understood then. The children weren't the first experiments. They were the successful ones, the ones who had evolved naturally despite their creators' attempts to control the process. "How long can you maintain this phase state?" she asked the children. "Not long enough," Crystal answered, their growths pulsing with strain. "They're using some kind of phase detection technology. They'll find us soon." Sarah nodded, making her decision. "Then we don't hide." We fight. Not their way. Our way. Human ingenuity combined with your abilities. Park, set course for the Maelstrom Nebula. The Maelstrom. Park's eyes widened. Captain, that's a Class 10 stellar phenomenon. No ship has ever survived passing through it. No ordinary ship, Sarah corrected him. But we're not ordinary anymore, are we? The children looked at each other, understanding dawning in their varied eyes. They weren't running anymore. Together with their human protectors, they were going to show Zenith genetics exactly what natural evolution, combined with human determination, could achieve. As the stellar Voyager altered course, heading toward one of the most dangerous regions of space known to exist, Sarah saw something new in the children's expressions. Not just hope or determination, but anticipation. They were done being experiments. Now, they were going to be pioneers. The Maelstrom Nebula loomed ahead, its swirling energies promising either salvation or destruction. But with human ingenuity and the children's evolving abilities working in concert, Sarah knew they had a chance. More than that, they had a purpose. Ready for something impossible, she asked her crew and their young charges. The answer came not in words, but in the unified glow of determination that filled the bridge. Human and evolved alien alike, they were about to make history or die trying. The Maelstrom Nebula lived up to its name. Massive tendrils of ionized gas whipped through space like cosmic serpents, while gravimetric eddies twisted the fabric of reality itself. The stellar Voyager approached its outer boundary, followed by the looming presence of the Evolutionary Prime and its escort ships. Their weapons are charging, Park reported. They're not going to let us enter the nebula. Sarah watched as Crystal's resonance field flickered around the bridge, synchronized with Echo's phasing ability. The children had positioned themselves in a hexagonal formation, each one's abilities complementing the others. They're afraid, Arya announced, reading the thoughts of their pursuers. The one like us. They call him the Prime Evolution. He's warning them not to let us reach the nebula's core. Dr. Rivera's medical scanners were recording unprecedented readings. Captain, the nebula's energy patterns, they're almost identical to the resonance field Crystal generates. If they interact, that's what they're afraid of, Sarah realized. The nebula isn't just a hiding place, it's a catalyst. The Evolutionary Prime fired its main weapon, a beam of concentrated evolutionary energy designed to force rapid mutations. But as it struck Crystal's field, something extraordinary happened. Instead of causing harm, the energy was absorbed, redirected, enhanced. Now, Sarah ordered, full power to engines. Crystal, Echo, do it. The children's abilities surged in perfect harmony. Crystal's resonance field expanded to envelope the entire ship, while Echo's phasing power shifted them partially out of normal spacetime. The stellar Voyager plunged into the maelstrom, riding the gravitational currents like a surfer on a wave. Behind them, the Evolutionary Prime followed, its massive bulk struggling against the nebula's forces. Its escort ships weren't so fortunate. The gravimetric eddies tore them apart within seconds. They're still following, Park warned, but their shields are failing. The nebula's energy is too chaotic for their systems to compensate. Sarah smiled grimly. Human ships had learned long ago that sometimes the best defense was adaptation rather than raw power. The stellar Voyager's shields weren't trying to block the nebula's energy. They were working with it, channeling it, using it. Crystal, Sarah called out. How close are we to the core? The crystalline child's growths were glowing brighter than ever, resonating with the nebula's power. Close, but something's happening. I can feel it changing us. Dr. Rivera's scanner beeped urgently. Their genetic structures are evolving again, faster than ever. The nebula's energy is accelerating the process, but naturally this time. No forced mutations, no artificial constraints. A massive tendril of nebular energy slammed into their shields. The children staggered but held their formation. Their abilities weren't just protecting the ship anymore. They were becoming something new, something unprecedented. The prime evolution, Area gasped, their telepathic senses overwhelmed. He's trying to connect with us, to force us to join with him. Through the view screen, they could see the evolutionary prime's true purpose now. Its hull was transparent in places, revealing massive chambers filled with failed experiments, twisted attempts to force evolution along predetermined paths. That's why they want you so badly. Sarah understood. You're proof that natural evolution, given the right conditions, will find its own path. You threaten everything they've tried to control. The nebula's core loomed ahead, a swirling vortex of pure evolutionary energy. The children's abilities were reaching their peak, resonating with the natural forces around them. Crystal's field merged with the nebula's energy, while Echo's phasing power allowed them to exist in multiple states simultaneously. They're preparing their final weapon, Park announced. Some kind of concentrated evolutionary pulse. If it hits us, it won't, Sarah declared, because we're not going to be where they think we are. Echo, Crystal, show them what natural evolution can really do. The children moved as one, their abilities combining in ways their creators had never imagined possible. Crystal's resonance field expanded exponentially, powered by the nebula's energy. Echo's phasing ability shifted the entire ship through multiple layers of reality simultaneously. The evolutionary prime fired its weapon, a beam of pure mutative energy that could rewrite genetic codes at the molecular level. But the stellar Voyager wasn't there to receive it. Instead, Crystal's field caught the energy, channeled it through Echo's phase space, and redirected it back through the nebula's natural amplification. The result was beyond anything they had expected. The feedback pulse struck the evolutionary prime, its energy enhanced by the nebula's power. But instead of causing destruction, it triggered something else. True evolution. The failed experiments, Area reported, their voice filled with wonder. They're changing, healing. The nebula's energy is letting them find their natural paths. Through the view screen, they watched as the evolutionary prime's chambers filled with light. The twisted experiments were transforming, their forced mutations giving way to natural adaptation. The prime evolution's control was breaking, replaced by the very force he had tried to harness, genuine evolutionary progress. Sarah watched in awe as the children's abilities stabilized at a new level. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were pioneers of their own species' natural development, and humanity had helped them achieve it not through control or force, but through protection and trust. Their weapons are offline, Park reported. The ship's entire systems are adapting, changing. They couldn't handle the natural evolutionary energy. The children lowered their defensive field, exhausted but triumphant. Their genetic structures had stabilized at a new level, their abilities enhanced but natural, the way evolution had intended. What now? Crystal asked, their crystals glowing with newfound strength. Sarah looked at her crew, then at their young charges who had become so much more. Now, we make sure this never happens again. We show the galaxy that true progress comes from protecting and nurturing natural development, not trying to control it. The stellar Voyager emerged from the Maelstrom Nebula, leading a transformed evolutionary prime. They had done more than win a battle. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology or weapons, but in its unwavering defense of life's right to find its own path. The great hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as Sarah Chen stepped forward, the 6 children by her side. 3 months had passed since the encounter in the Maelstrom Nebula, and the ripples of those events had spread far across the galaxy. Behind them stood the holographic images of hundreds of transformed beings from the evolutionary prime, living testimony to the power of natural adaptation. Honorable Council, Sarah began, her voice carrying through the vast chamber. You've reviewed our evidence against Zenith Genetics. You've seen the results of their attempts to force evolution along predetermined paths. Now, I ask you to look at what happens when we protect and nurture natural development instead. Crystal stepped forward, their crystalline growths no longer chaotic, but elegantly structured, pulsing with contained energy. When they spoke, their voice resonated with newfound confidence. We were created as experiments, but we became something more through choice and adaptation. The council members murmured as Echo demonstrated their now perfected phase shifting, moving through solid matter with graceful precision. Aria's telepathic abilities had evolved to communicate not just thoughts, but understanding, letting the council experience firsthand the journey they had undergone. The human vessel Stellar Voyager, one council member noted, chose to protect you despite considerable risk. Why? Because that's what humans do, Aria answered, their silver eyes bright. They recognize the value of life in all its forms. They understand that true strength comes from diversity, not conformity. Dr. Rivera presented the medical data, showing how the children's genetic structures had stabilized naturally within the nebula's energy field. What Zenith tried to force through artificial means, nature achieved through its own wisdom. The key was providing protection and support during the process, not controlling it. The evidence was irrefutable. The transformed beings from the evolutionary prime had all found their own paths, their forced mutations giving way to natural adaptations. Each was unique, yet stable, living proof that evolution worked best when allowed to proceed naturally. And what of the other facilities? Another council member asked. Our investigations have uncovered dozens of Zenith genetics research stations. Sarah smiled. Earth has already offered sanctuary to any beings seeking to escape forced evolution programs. Moreover, we're establishing a network of protected zones, areas where those undergoing natural genetic adaptation can develop safely, free from interference. The council chambers erupted in discussion. This was unprecedented, a fundamental shift in how the galaxy viewed genetic development. The children stood proudly, examples of what was possible when natural evolution was protected rather than controlled. There's more, Crystal announced, their resonance field extending to include their companions. We've discovered others like us, hiding throughout the galaxy. They need protection, understanding, and most importantly, choice. The Council's decision was unanimous. Zenith Genetics facilities were to be converted into sanctuaries, protected by joint Galactic Council and Earth forces. The age of forced evolution was ending, replaced by a new era of protected natural development. As they left the council chambers, Sarah found herself surrounded by her unusual family. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were pioneers, educators, living proof of humanity's commitment to protecting life's right to find its own path. What do we do now? Echo asked, their form shifting slightly with excitement. Now, Sarah replied, watching as a group of newly freed experiments approached them, hope in their various eyes. We build something new. A place where everyone can evolve according to their own nature, protected by those who understand that diversity is strength. The Stellar Voyager, repaired and enhanced after its journey through the maelstrom, waited in orbit. Its mission had changed. No longer just a research vessel, it would lead the fleet of sanctuary ships, protecting those seeking to develop free from interference. Crystal's resonance field pulsed one last time, connecting them all in a moment of shared purpose. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had been abandoned by their creators but found family among the stars. Most importantly, they had discovered that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't technology or power, but its unshakable dedication to protecting the right of all beings to chart their own course through the cosmos, ready to help others find their path. Sarah asked, looking at her crew and their evolved charges. The answer came not in words, but in the unified glow of determination that surrounded them. Human and evolved being alike, they were no longer separate species but family, bound together by choice rather than creation. Their story would echo through the galaxy, a testament to what was possible when humanity's protective instincts merged with the universe's drive to evolve and adapt. As the Stellar Voyager broke orbit, carrying its precious cargo of dreams and possibilities, Sarah knew they had achieved something far greater than survival. They had proven that the strongest force in the universe wasn't control or power, but the simple choice to protect those seeking to become their true selves. The stars stretched out before them, each one potentially harboring others in need of sanctuary. But now they faced that vast expanse not with fear, but with purpose, ready to show the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength was its willingness to defend life's right to find its own way among the stars. The end.